I was in my second year of college. I lived in a cheap, off-campus apartment and kept to myself mostly. I was taking a heavy course load, so my routine was just going to class, going to the library, and going home. In my evening sociology class, I met a guy named Thomas. Thomas was new. He sat next to me in the third week of the semester. He was a tall, very thin guy. He always wore long-sleeved flannel shirts, even though it was early September and still hot outside. He didn't talk much. In fact, he didn't talk at all, unless the professor forced us into group discussions. I felt a little bad for him. He seemed like an outcast. So, I started making small talk with him before lectures. Just basic things about the assignments or the weather. I noticed some weird things about Thomas right away. He never made eye contact. He would stare at my forehead or my neck when I spoke to him. And he asked very specific questions. He never asked about my hobbies. Instead, he asked things like, "Do you have roommates?" Or, "Does your apartment have a security camera in the hallway?" I brushed it off. I figured he was just socially awkward and didn't know how to make normal conversation. A month into the semester, we were assigned a huge midterm group project. The professor paired me and Thomas together. We had to create a 30-minute presentation. I did most of the research, and Thomas was supposed to format the slides and bring the final presentation on a flash drive. The presentation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Monday night rolled around. I texted Thomas to confirm he had the flash drive ready. No response. I called him twice. It went straight to voicemail. By 9 p.m., I was getting nervous. If we didn't have that flash drive, we would both fail the midterm. I remembered that on the syllabus sheet, we had to write down our permanent addresses for university records. I had taken a picture of the sheet earlier in the year. I checked my phone. Thomas lived about 20 minutes away, on the edge of town. I decided to just drive over there, get the flash drive, and come back. It was a stupid decision, but I was stressed about my grades. I got in my car and drove. The area Thomas lived in was old. It was a neighborhood that the city had mostly forgotten about. The streetlights were far apart, and half of them were burnt out. The houses were spaced far away from each other, separated by thick woods and overgrown lots. I pulled onto his street. It was a dead-end dirt road. I parked my car at the edge of his driveway. His house was a 2-story wooden structure. The paint was peeling. The yard was full of tall, dead weeds. There were no cars in the driveway. All the windows were completely dark. Thick curtains were pulled tight across every single one of them. I got out of my car. The only sound was the crunching of gravel under my shoes. I walked up the wooden porch steps. They creaked under my weight. I knocked on the front door. 3 solid knocks. I waited. Nothing. I knocked again, a bit harder. Almost instantly, the deadbolt clicked. The door opened. It wasn't Thomas. It was an older man. He had the same thin face as Thomas, but he was completely bald. He was wearing a stained yellow undershirt and dark work pants. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice was completely flat. No emotion at all. "Hi. Sorry to bother you," I said. "I'm looking for Thomas. We have a project due tomorrow and I just need to grab a flash drive from him." The man didn't blink. He just stared at my face for a few seconds. Then, the corners of his mouth stretched into a wide, unnatural smile. "Thomas is inside. Come in." He stepped back and held the door open. I hesitated. I didn't want to go inside, but I really needed that drive. I stepped over the threshold into the hallway. The moment both my feet were inside, the man slammed the door shut behind me. I heard the heavy metal deadbolt slide into place. The house smelled awful. It was a heavy, sweet smell mixed with strong bleach, like someone was trying to cover up the scent of rotting meat with industrial cleaner. The hallway was dimly lit by a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. There were no pictures on the walls, no coats on the rack. The living room to my right was completely empty, except for a large plastic tarp covering the center of the floor and 2 metal folding chairs facing a blank wall. "He's in the kitchen," the man said, pointing down the hall. I walked forward. My mouth felt dry. The floorboards were slightly sticky under my shoes. I walked into the kitchen. Thomas was sitting at the table. A woman was standing by the sink. She had her back to me.
"Hey, Thomas," I said. Thomas looked up. He didn't look surprised to see me. He didn't even look like a student. His face was completely blank. "You're here," Thomas said quietly. The woman turned around. She must have been his mother. She had the same wide, stretched smile as the father. "We have a guest," she said. She walked over to the table and sat down next to Thomas. The father walked into the kitchen and stood directly in the doorway behind me. He was blocking the only way out. "Sit down," the father said. "I really can't," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I just need the flash drive. My roommate is waiting for me back at the apartment." "You didn't tell your roommate you were coming here," Thomas said. I froze. "What?" "You didn't tell anyone," Thomas repeated. He didn't ask it as a question. He stated it as a fact. The mother leaned forward. "Did anyone see you park outside?" "Look, I just want my project," I said. My hands started to shake. I put them in my pockets so they wouldn't notice. The father took a step toward me. "It's late. You should stay for dinner." The house was completely silent. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. I realized I was trapped in a room with 3 people who were looking at me not like a guest, but like a piece of property. I needed to get out of that kitchen. "Okay," I said, forcing a fake smile. "I'll stay, but I really need to use the bathroom first. Long drive." The mother's smile dropped. The father stopped moving. They all just looked at me. "Down the hall, last door on the left," the father finally said. He stepped aside, leaving a small gap for me to walk past him. I squeezed past the father. I could smell the stale sweat on his clothes. I walked down the dark hallway. I didn't run, because I knew if I ran, they would chase me immediately. I reached the last door on the left. I opened it, stepped inside, and pushed the door shut. I locked it. The bathroom was small. There was no mirror above the sink, just bare drywall. I looked at the bathtub. The shower curtain was pulled closed. I don't know why I did it. Human curiosity is a dangerous thing. I reached out and pulled the plastic curtain back. The bathtub was lined with heavy-duty black trash bags. Inside the tub were rolls of silver duct tape, thick plastic zip ties, and a pair of heavy pruning shears. Sitting on the edge of the sink was a small cardboard box. I looked inside. There were cell phones, about 7 or 8 of them, and a stack of plastic cards. I picked up the top card. It was a student ID from my college. I recognized the face. It was a girl from the business department. who had been reported missing on the local news 2 weeks ago. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe. Then, the bathroom doorknob jiggled. Someone was standing right outside the door. "You don't need to lock the door," the father's voice said through the wood. I didn't answer. "Open the door," he said. His voice was louder this time, angry. I looked up. There was a small, frosted window above the toilet. It was old and painted shut, but the glass was thin. The doorknob turned violently. Then, a heavy weight slammed against the door. The wood splintered around the lock. He was breaking it down. I climbed onto the toilet. I grabbed the heavy porcelain lid off the back of the toilet tank. Bang! Another hit against the door. The door frame cracked. I swung the porcelain lid as hard as I could against the frosted window. The glass shattered. Cold night air rushed in. "He's breaking the window!" the mother screamed from the hallway. I dropped the lid. I grabbed the edges of the broken window frame. The glass cut into my palms, but I didn't care. I pulled my head and shoulders through the opening. I heard the bathroom door kick open inside. Fingers grabbed the ankle of my left leg. It was a tight, crushing grip. I kicked wildly with my right foot. I felt my shoe connect with something hard. A face. The grip loosened for a split second. I threw my entire body weight forward. I tumbled out of the window and fell hard onto the dirt outside. I landed on my shoulder. The pain was sharp, but adrenaline completely took over. I scrambled to my feet. I didn't look back at the window. I just ran. I ran through the dead weeds in the dark. I hit the dirt road and sprinted toward my car. I pulled my keys out of my pocket while running. I reached my car, unlocked it, and threw myself into the driver's seat. I slammed the door and locked it. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over. I threw it in reverse, backed up blindly into the grass, and slammed the car into drive. As my headlights swept across the front of the house, I saw them. The front door was wide open. The father, the mother, and Thomas were standing on the porch. They weren't yelling. They weren't running after the car. They were just standing, shoulder to shoulder, in the dark, watching me drive away. I sped down the dirt road until I hit the main highway. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the police station. I sat in an interrogation room for 3 hours, explaining everything to 2 detectives. I told them about the zip ties, the phones, and the student ID of the missing girl. They sent 4 squad cars to the house immediately. The detectives came back to the station at 4 a.m. They told me the house was completely empty. There was no plastic tarp. There were no folding chairs. The bathroom tub was clean. The box of cell phones and IDs was gone. The only thing they found was the broken window in the bathroom and my blood on the glass. The property was registered to a shell corporation that hadn't been active in 10 years. Nobody named Thomas was registered at my university. The name on the class roster was a fake, paid for in cash at the start of the semester. I transferred to an out-of-state college the next month. I moved to a gated apartment complex. But sometimes, when I'm walking to my car at night, I check my rearview mirror, because I know that a family like that doesn't just disappear. They just move to a new town and find a new, quiet kid in a lecture hall to sit next to.